Hi folks, I'm Andy from Mantic Games, and in this Kings of War Champions video, I'm going to take you through one of the key components of any rank and flank game, the movement phase. Now before we begin talking about movement, it's worth taking a few seconds to talk about facings and arcs. Now unlike skirmish games which you may be familiar with, where individual models move around and change their facing freely during the battle, in a rank and flank game, your army is ranked up shoulder to shoulder, facing down the enemy and working as a well-organised unit. In Champions, units have 4 facings: a front, a rear, a left and a right flank. Each of these facings has an arc, an area determined by drawing an imaginary line at 45-degree angles from each corner of the unit, as shown here on screen. Don't worry about trying to calculate if something is exactly 45 degrees from a facing, as if you've picked up the 2-player set or the rulebook and token set, you'll have this handy arc tool to help you determine a unit's arc. We also have something called the unit leader point. The unit leader point is the exact centre of the front edge of a unit's base. The reason we call it a leader point is some players like to place a suitably imposing model in the centre of the first rank to lead the unit. Even if the unit is a single model, the exact centre of the front edge is still classed as its leader point. Okay, so now you know about facings, let's move on to the movement phase. During the movement phase of your turn, you will select each of your units in any order you like and give them one of the following orders: halt, change facing, advance, back, sidestep, at the double, or charge. Let's demonstrate how each of these work in practice. Halt is pretty self-explanatory. The unit halts and does not move at all. Change facing means that your unit remains on its spot but can be pivoted around its centre point to face in any other direction. Advance means that your unit can move straight forward up to a maximum number of inches equal to its speed stat. It doesn't have to move its full speed, but it can't exceed it. Now at any point during this move, the unit can make up to 2 pivots of up to 90 degrees around its centre point. This can be before you move, at any point in the forward movement, or after the move is completed. Back means that the unit can move backwards at up to half of its speed, the coward. During this backwards move, you can also perform one single pivot of up to 90 degrees around the unit's centre point at any point before, during or after the move, as demonstrated here. Next is sidestep. This means that your unit can shuffle sideways to its left or its right up to the number of inches of its speed stat. There is no pivot in this one. At the double is when your unit has been ordered to get a move on, and it can advance straight forward at up to double its speed. Now like advance, it can also make up to 2 pivots around its centre point of up to 90 degrees. However, there are some downsides to this. There are some terrain elements which will prevent you from moving over them when you move at the double, and any unit given this order is far too tired to use ranged attacks and so forfeits its ability to take part in the ranged phase. Lastly, and by far the most exciting of orders, is charge. It's also a little more complex, so we'll go into that in a little more detail. A charge is typically the only way your unit can move into contact with the enemy. A unit can charge a single enemy unit as long as they meet certain conditions. First up, your enemy unit needs to be at least partially in your front arc. Secondly, your unit must be able to draw line of sight to the enemy unit from its leader point. Line of sight is covered in more detail on page 11 of the rulebook. However, you essentially determine line of sight by drawing an imaginary straight line from your unit's leader point to any point of your enemy's base. If this imaginary line passes over no other unit's base, blocking terrain or through a wood, you can see them. Next, your enemy must be within charge range. This means the distance between any point on your unit's front facing and the closest point on the enemy unit's base must be equal to or less than double your unit's speed stat. You need to ensure that there is enough space for your unit to be physically placed into contact with the enemy. And lastly, another of your friendly units must not have already charged and be occupying the same facing of the enemy that you want to charge. In order to overwhelm your enemy, you may want to charge the same opponent with multiple friendly units, and this is perfectly fine and is indeed encouraged, as long as both units can fit. However, you can only charge multiple units into different facings. For example, one unit into the front and one into the flank. You cannot charge multiple units into the front facing, for example. Page 16 of the rulebook goes into charging in more detail, but at least this gives you the basics. So that covers the basics of the movement phase. Once you've moved or chosen not to move all of your units, you then move on to the ranged phase. Join me in the next video where I'll show you how to do that.